In the heart of the Serengeti, where golden grasses swayed like waves under the sun and acacia trees stood like ancient sentinels, a young lion named Kazi took his first steps outside the den. His mother, Malika, watched with cautious eyes, her body tense, listening to the subtle changes in the wind. She had chosen the spot for their new home, a place where the tall grasses provided hiding spots and the watering hole nearby ensured water for the pride. Yet even here, in the heart of their kingdom, danger lurked. Kazi didn't know it yet, but the wild world was full of stories. Every paw print, every rustle in the bushes, every scent carried on the breeze told a tale. And now it was time for him to start learning how to read them. As he tumbled in the grass, she would soon tell him about the Great Migration, when millions of hoofs pounded the earth as wildebeest and zebra moved across the plains, followed by the predators that thrived on their bounty. She would teach him about the delicate balance of the ecosystem, how every creature, predator or prey, played a part in keeping the circle of life strong. He looked up at her, his big green eyes shining with curiosity. "Tell me a story, Mama." And so she did. Malika began with the tale of the elephant, Tembo, whose tusks were like ancient spears, and whose memories stretched back as far as the oldest acacia tree. One day, Kazi ventured further, following a butterfly with wings like stained glass. Soon, the ground beneath his paws changed, becoming harder and baked by the relentless sun. The air shimmered above the cracked earth. The watering hole they'd left behind was just a distant memory. Tembo stood before him, surrounded by a small herd. Seeing the young lion, he trumpeted softly, recognizing Malika's kin. Then he began to speak, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "These lands have stories in their wrinkles, little one. They've seen many seasons, many migrations. Do you want to hear them?" Kazi nodded eagerly, pressing closer. So Tembo spoke of the ancient paths, the migration routes, the very veins of the earth that pulsed with the rhythm of the herds. "The land remembers," Tembo said, "but only if we tread with care." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Kazi felt a pang of homesickness. He remembered the soft den and the comforting scent of his pride. Still, there was a thrill in exploring, a song in his heart that urged him to keep going. Days turned into weeks, and Kazi roamed far and wide, meeting creatures that seemed straight out of his mother's stories. There were herds of graceful giraffes, their coats patterned like the stars in the night sky. There were also speedy cheetahs, spotted like fallen leopards, and wise old baboons with tails in their eyes. But the wild world wasn't just beautiful and full of stories. It could also be harsh and unforgiving. One evening, as the sky rumbled with the threat of rain, Kazi smelled something strange, something acrid and terrifying. He looked up to see a wall of fire rolling across the grasslands, licking the sky with hungry tongues of flame. Panic surged through the animals. Herds stampeded, crashing through the undergrowth. The air crackled with heat, and the roar of the flames drowned out the usual sounds of the evening. Kazi found Malika, her eyes wide with worry. Without a word, they joined the fleeing animals, running side by side as the fire roared behind them. Zebras, giraffes, and gazelles ran together, their differences forgotten in the face of this common enemy. Even Tembo lumbered away, his tusks held high to shield the frightened calves. Fear pounded in Kazi's chest, but he pressed on, driven by instinct and the desperate need to survive. As suddenly as it started, the fire passed. When the smoke cleared, all that remained was the smell of ash and the charred skeletons of trees. Kazi and Malika stood together surveying the damage, their bodies tense, listening for any sign of danger. The days that followed were hard. Many animals lost their homes and their sources of food. But as Amani would have told them, if she'd been there, nature always rebuilds. Green shoots pushed through the charred earth, determined to reach the light. The scavengers returned to clean the bones picked clean by hyenas. Life, tenacious and resilient, began to mend the wounds of the fire. Yet this was not the only threat they faced. A few weeks after the fire, Kazi saw something that made him freeze in his tracks. It was a creature unlike any he'd seen before. Tall, with pale skin and shiny tools that glinted in the sun. This being walked upright, unlike any animal he knew. Cautiously, Kazi approached, his senses on high alert. He wanted to understand this strange creature. The human looked up from whatever it was that it was doing and saw Kazi. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the human pointed something that clicked. Kazi had heard the click before, but never realized what it meant. At first, Kazi wasn't afraid. Curiosity bubbled inside him. Could this human become part of his story? Maybe. But then more humans came, some watching with keen interest while others took things from the ground, cutting into trees or setting snares. One day, Kazi noticed a young zebra missing from the herd. It had been caught in one of those snares. Another day, a male lion was missing, taken by the ones who roared with loud, cruel voices. Fear flickered in Kazi's eyes. These humans were not like the ones he'd seen before. They brought danger, taking what they wanted without care. When he told Malika what he'd seen, she was grave. Some humans are not like us, she admitted, her voice low. They hunt for sport or to sell our kind for money. Others come to watch us as if we are toys for their amusement. But these are not the only ones. Her gaze was distant, as if seeing a vision. There are those who come to steal our cubs or harm our pride. We must be cautious, Kazi, and learn who to trust. So Kazi listened, trying to understand the secrets the land and his elders shared with him. Seasons turned into years. The rains fell and the rivers ran full. Spring brought new life and summer ripened the grasses to gold. Each year, the herds moved in their ancient patterns, guided by instinct and the changing seasons. Each year, Kazi watched, learned, and grew, taking his place in the circle of life. As the years went by, Kazi grew into a powerful lion with a thick mane like a burning sunset around his head. His amber eyes, sharp and intelligent, reflected the wisdom he'd gained from the tales of the elders and his mother's teachings. He led with balance, respecting the power of the wild and understanding the importance of protecting the weak. He kept peace among the prides, ensuring all could thrive under the blazing sun. And he taught the cubs to listen to the rustlings in the grass, to learn the language of the wild. His roar was not just a sound to mark his territory. It was a song of power, reminding all who heard it that the wild still lived. Far away from the plains of the Serengeti, a young woman named Amina sat poring over maps and satellite images. She traced the movement of the lions with a keen eye, trying to predict their next move. She had dedicated her life to studying them, to understanding their behavior and protecting their habitat. She'd seen Kazi grow from a curious cub to a majestic leader. Today, she smiled as she noted his presence, a testament to the thriving pride he led. Through her work, she shared their stories with the world, hoping to inspire awe and respect for these magnificent creatures. Slowly, thanks to her efforts and those who believed in her mission, People began to care. Reserves were protected, poaching patrols strengthened, and most importantly, trees that had once been cut down were replanted. One by one, the people began to understand that the wild was not something to be feared or exploited. It was a source of wonder and balance, a place where the whisper of the wind carried stories as old as time itself. And deep in the heart of the Serengeti, Kazi raised his head and roared, a sound that echoed the strength of his pride and the resilience of the wild. In his eyes, the wild still lived,